Good evening, everyone. If everybody could take a seat, we want to start right at 6 p.m. Because some of our candidates have multiple events to get to today. Candidates, there's seats up front if you'd like. Okay, and thank you. Good evening, everyone. Please find a seat. And we're about to begin. There's spaces for the candidates up front. And there's extra chairs in the back if you want to move them up. So my name is Kathy Tuffy, and I'm the chair of the Braintree Democratic Town Committee. Welcome to the Statewide Candidates Forum, presented by the Braintree, Quincy, Weymouth, Hingham, and Holbrook Democratic Committees. Primary election day is just 2 weeks from today. Mail-in ballots are already being received by town and city clerks, and early voting begins this Saturday. We are very excited about the highly qualified candidates running in the Democratic primary. This forum is designed to help voters make an informed choice before casting their ballot. The candidate order has been chosen by lottery. The candidates will be asked the same 2 questions, and then each will be given 5 minutes to respond. Our timer will, James from Hingham, will give candidates a 1-minute warning to let them know they're getting close to their limit. And so we're going to begin tonight with Quincy Dem's Vice Chair, Colin McMahon, who will moderate the Lieutenant Governor portion of the forum. So is Eric here? yet? Okay, so, okay, I'll see if I can find it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do what we can. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Kathy and the Braintree Democrats for hosting the event. I'm honored to introduce 3 candidates for Lieutenant Governor. For those who don't know, the Lieutenant Governor, as its name suggests, operates and acts as the governor whenever our governor is otherwise indisposed. In addition, the Lieutenant Governor fulfills the essential role of liaison, helping the governor coordinate with various cities across the Commonwealth. But that's really enough from me, so let's let our candidates get up here and do the talking. I'm excited to announce State Representative Tammy Govea. Tammy, come on up. Salem Mayor Kim Driscoll. You guys can applaud, it's fine. And the hopefully joining us soon, State Senator Eric Lesser. So while we wait to see if Eric shows up, we're going to just start right with the questions. So the first question goes to you, Tammy, and we'll start with you, and then it'll go Kim, and then Eric if he's here. This was determined by random lottery, just to let everyone know. So the first question is, tell us about yourself and your background, and most importantly, why you are qualified for Lieutenant Governor.
Great. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for everybody for trekking out in the rain. I am Tammy Govea, running for Lieutenant Governor because I believe that we deserve to have leadership in the corner office that is putting our health, our well-being, and our dignity at the center of decision-making. So really putting people first and foremost when we're making critical decisions. A little bit about me, I grew up in the city of Lowell. My grandfather was in the Carpenters Union. That put my family on solid economic footing. It allowed my parents to buy a 2-family home, and they were able to rent out the upstairs apartment. That allowed them to stretch their wages, and we were able to weather the economic storms of the 70s and the 80s when I was growing up. But also while growing up, I saw so many families around me that did not have enough and that suffered the indignities of intergenerational poverty, structural racism, and xenophobia. I'm 48 years old. I was coming of age when Lowell became a resettlement location for families fleeing the genocide of the Khmer Rouge. So even though I didn't experience these indignities firsthand, they really did instill in me a deep sense of empathy and a desire to give back. So I've been a social worker for the last 25 years, leading on critical issues, including the opioid crisis, which has not gone unnoticed by every single community across the Commonwealth. Also led on issues related to environmental justice and housing in the city of Lowell. Along the way, I became a single parent to my kids who are now 21 and 18. And I have seen many of the struggles that so many of our young family and emerging adults are facing when it comes to racial injustice, the climate crisis, the rising costs of education and housing and other goods. And those are things that I have also experienced throughout my time as a single parent for 14 years. Figuring out what's going to happen to me if my car breaks down. How am I going to get through the month with another negative bank balance and needing to borrow money from family and from friends to put gas in my car and to buy a gallon of milk. So a lot of the struggles that families are facing today are ones that I have lived with. And I haven't ever forgotten the experiences that I had growing up in the city of Lowell and the experiences that I have had as a single parent. I have brought those experiences with me when I moved to Acton and became the state representative for the 14th Middlesex District 4 years ago. And I'm running for Lieutenant Governor to leverage my expertise as a social worker for 25 years, my lived experience as a single parent, my expertise as a doctor of public health and as a policymaker, to really focus on people and being proactive in getting at the root causes of the big, complex issues that we are facing. Our mental health and human services crises, our child care crisis, our housing crisis, and climate issues. And with all of these, as well as our response and recovery from COVID-19, we have to put economic and racial justice at the center. And so when we talk about what is the role of lieutenant governor, it is what you described. The liaison to municipalities is not stated in statute. It's been more practice. I think we can expand our expectations for what the role of lieutenant governor ought to be in tackling some of these big issues. That's the best way, in my estimation, to be a good, solid partner to our municipal leaders, because they're all struggling with workforce issues as well, because of the mental health crisis, because of the housing crisis, and because of the child care crisis that was already in existence before COVID hit, but really got slammed up even further because of the impacts of the pandemic. So, in the other key piece of the lieutenant governor that is in statute is sitting on the governor's council as the ex officio chair. And this is a really critical role, working with the Governor's Council, which is the body that makes appointments for judges and parole board members. And so I want to leverage my background as a social worker to make sure that the judges that we are appointing represent the vast diversity that we have in the Commonwealth, whether you're talking about race, ethnicity, or lived experience, or background, professional background, and geography. But also I want to make sure that we are putting childhood trauma and accounting for the role that racism and intergenerational poverty also play in folks becoming involved in the criminal legal system. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Govea. Mayor Driscoll, would you like me to repeat the question?
That'd be great.
Okay. So tell us about yourself and your background, and most importantly, why are you qualified for Lieutenant Governor?
Well, thanks so much for the question, and thanks to everyone who's here, folks who are watching at home, for carving out time to learn more about the candidates and hopefully be in a position to vote September 6th. My name's Kim Driscoll. I'm the mayor in Salem, Massachusetts. It's a job I've had for the last 16 years and one I really love. Serving in local government as mayor has not been my first foray into local governing. I actually worked for the city of Chelsea when they were coming out of receivership. Folks may remember Chelsea went into receivership. The last 5 mayors had either lost their ticket to practice law or had gone to jail. The city was in very much a status of being on its knees and had reformed their government to a city manager form. I was hired when they came out of receivership to serve as their in-house chief legal counsel and later became the deputy city manager. And that experience really taught me the value of good government, and who pays the price when there are failures in leadership. And it's usually the most vulnerable among us. I was grateful to be part of a team in Chelsea City Hall who brought renewed investment, renewed engagement, and renewed accountability. But I'd always lived in Salem. It's sort of an adopted hometown. I'm not a native of Massachusetts. I'm actually a Navy brat. I was born in Hawaii, and we traveled all over as a family when my dad was in the service. My mom is from Trinidad, and I came to Salem to go to college. I fell in love with the city. I fell in love with my husband, Nick, who is a second-generation union bricklayer, proud member of Local 3. We like to tease that he's putting his political science degree to good use, throwing in brick and block throughout Greater Boston. And together we've raised our 3 kids in a community that has felt really welcoming and inclusive. And in 2005, while working in Chelsea, I saw a real need for action in Salem. It was a community that had some terrific assets, amazing history, but seemed to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, wasn't operating on all cylinders. So I quit my job in Chelsea and decided to run for mayor with the hope of improving city services, sort of, making government more open and transparent. We had a little bit of an old boys network in Salem, to be honest. They'd never had a woman mayor and never had a mayor who wasn't from that community. I worked hard, and thankfully I got elected. And 16 years later, Salem is a hip, historic, vibrant destination, 3rd most visited destination in Massachusetts. We're a place that's made historic investments in schools, in parks, and infrastructure. One of the reasons I'm so excited about the opportunity to serve as Lieutenant Governor, because I know firsthand from my work in Salem, my work in Chelsea, what it takes to be a successful community, and it takes a strong state partner. Mayors like me have been on the ground in some of our most urgent fights, from COVID response and recovery, trying to tackle race equity issues, working hard to strengthen our schools. As mayor, I chaired the Salem School Committee. I know firsthand this pandemic, the toll it's taken on our students and our staff, and how much work we have to do as we come out of it. It is not going to be over in 1 year. I also know how hard it is to do that work alone. We're working on affordable housing issues. Salem used to be a place that was affordable, where you could pour coffee and pour beer for a living and put a roof over your head. That is very much no longer the case, and that's not just in my community, it's in many more. As mayor, You're in the trenches every single day. I like to say there's no hiding in this job. You've got direct accountability. You've been blessed that you're able to make decisions for others in your community, neighbors, friends, people you're going to see every day, after you make a decision and before. I think it makes you a better listener. I think it makes you more accountable. I think it gives you a sense of urgency and a thirst to solve problems. When you're in the trenches, as what I call part of the get stuff done wing of government, you can't talk about solving challenges in the abstract. You have to lean into the work, and that's what we've done. In my community, we've worked on our climate crisis by developing our own climate action plan. We've worked on improving transportation and congestion by having a public on-demand rideshare service. Started out as an age-friendly initiative. It's given almost 70,000 rides to date, getting people around our community. We didn't wait to have Boston solve these problems. My first year in office, we bought a city-owned ferry. Water transportation has been key to success in my community. I think there's more work that we can do. We've expanded childcare, early pre-K in my community, knowing the value that has for our youngest learners and for our working families. I share these examples as someone who's an executive on the ground doing the work. I think that's a key skill set to bring to this race as Lieutenant Governor. I look forward to being a strong partner to Governor Healy. Got over 250 endorsements from legislative officials, local officials, including the mayor here, across the Commonwealth. I'm grateful for that support. The only candidate endorsed by Planned Parenthood. Feel like we have a lot of optimism and momentum. Would be grateful to have your support in this race as we head to September 6th. And again, thank you for being here and giving us a chance to introduce ourselves and share a little bit more about our experiences.
Thank you, Mayor Driscoll. Senator Lesser, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay. It's my one job. Tell us about yourself and your background, and most importantly, why are you qualified for Lieutenant Governor?
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you to the Braintree Democrats for putting this together, and I want to thank my colleagues, both Rep. Gouveia and Mayor Driscoll. My name is Eric Lesser. I come from Longmeadow, which is a town about 90 miles or so west of here, and I represent the greater Springfield area. For people who might not be familiar with my region, it has some of the densest, most urban, lowest income communities in Massachusetts. I also represent a town without a stoplight. And one of the things that unites all of those communities, quite frankly, is a feeling that the next generation, our kids, our grandkids, are not going to have the same opportunities that we've had. Because let's really think about it for a second. I love Massachusetts. I know we all love Massachusetts, but it's getting harder and harder to live here. It's getting harder to afford it. Braintree has been no exception. Housing prices are skyrocketing. Congestion and transportation is really at a breaking point. And for the last 8 years in the state Senate, I've worked in collaboration with both my colleagues in the Senate and with Attorney General Maura Healey on some of the biggest issues facing our state. Just a few examples. Let me ask a question. How many of the people here, either themselves, a family member, a neighbor, a friend, a classmate, has suffered from addiction? At the height of the opioid crisis, which continues, by the way, in 2015, I partnered with Attorney General Maura Healey to write a new law to allow for bulk purchasing of Narcan. The same way Costco and Walmart get a better price by negotiating in bulk, we gave the state new tools to negotiate bulk purchases of Narcan that has helped get thousands of doses into the hands of police, firefighters, and first responders. At the height of the COVID economic crisis, when the unemployment rate went from 4% to 14% in 8 or 9 days, my colleagues in the Senate turned to me to write the economic rescue package for our Commonwealth. We helped get $600 million out the door to the smallest businesses. We wrote into that legislation that the money had to go out in grants to our smallest businesses and in our lowest income zip codes first. That program helped keep hundreds of daycare centers, restaurants, barbershops, nail salons alive through the COVID shutdowns, allowed them to continue to pay their rent and pay their payrolls and keep their employees hired. And an issue that I've been working on for the last 8 years that I'm committed to work with Attorney General and soon to be Governor Healey on is connecting our state by high-speed rail access. Governor Baker was actually in Springfield today talking about it. This project is on the verge of happening. And why should Braintree or anyone in the Braintree area care about this? Well, first, connecting our state by high-speed rail would be the single biggest climate reduction project in our state's history, taking thousands of cars off the road. It would connect people to homes they can afford and allow us to take on the housing crisis by building more units of good transit-oriented development. And it would create thousands of really good, really high-quality jobs, especially in areas of our state that frankly have been left out of the life sciences and high-tech boom we've seen in certain zip codes around our state. So I'm really excited for the forum today. I have the record of working on some of the highest stakes issues with Attorney General Healy already, and I'm looking forward to being her lieutenant and helping give voice as well to the underserved regions of our state. One last item that Attorney General Healy and I worked on together was a student loan borrower bill of rights, a new consumer protection for 800,000 student loan borrowers across our state. We took on Betsy DeVos, we took on Donald Trump. Attorney General Healy was suing them while we were writing the legislation in the Senate and in the House and putting that on Governor Baker's desk to create that new protection. So I hope you'll keep me in mind. Again, my name is Eric Lesser, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lesser. Now we're going to move on to our second and final question for the candidates, and as before, we'll be starting with Representative Gouveia. So this next and final question is, there are many important issues impacting residents of the South Shore. How will you meet these unique challenges?
And this is 5 minutes as well?
It is.
Okay, thank you. I think it's what is going to really be the thing that is a big focus of mine for the Commonwealth as a whole. It will impact every single region, because I got into this race because what I have seen repeatedly and what I have lived through is how families consistently are being left behind, are very hard-working families. What I've been advocating for, what I have stood up for throughout my career as a social worker and my time as a state representative and as a candidate for the last 14 months, is really advocating for our working families, making sure that they have the resources that they need to thrive. One of the things that we took up in the legislature was the economic development bill. I'm calling for us to get back into session, because built into that economic development package and tax relief package is money that would go right back into the pockets of everyday people, our renters, our seniors, our folks who are struggling with the rising costs and just to get by. I have lived that kind of experience as a single parent, as I said in my introduction. And so I know what it is like to live that life and to really experience the shame and the fear and the constant stress and strain that comes with financial struggle. So I will take that experience as the next Lieutenant Governor, really focusing on those fundamental issues that are impacting families in every single region and every single community across the Commonwealth. Childcare, it's not affordable, it's not accessible. There are plenty of people that want to work in the trades that can't get access to the childcare that they need so that they can go get that trades job. This is particularly impacting women of color in Boston, who I have been talking with about this since November. When it comes to the mental health crisis, I was just at a nursing center and a rehab facility, and they were talking about the stresses and the strains that they are experiencing with the mental health crisis, seeing how it's impacting our little ones, third graders getting hospitalized and coming out, and there's no therapist to hook them up with because we just simply haven't made the investments in our mental health care workforce. Our seniors who can't get the personal care attendant, disabled people who can't get a personal care attendant to come and take care of them in their home, meaning that working adults who otherwise might be going back to their jobs are not able to do that because we just don't have the workforce to meet those needs. So I don't think it's what are the specific things around the South Shore. I think there are universal issues that are impacting folks all across the Commonwealth. And when it comes to our housing crisis and the climate crisis, those are twin issues that we can address together. Also, making sure that we are building housing, not only that's affordable and accessible, but that we're planning ahead, that we're proactive in thinking about the fact that as we experience long COVID and those increases in disabilities go up, we're going to have more demand for accessible housing. We have an aging population that we have not really been fully preparing for. as it relates to the housing crisis. We need to be very proactive in thinking about these issues and planning for things that are coming on the horizon. I'm able to be that kind of lieutenant governor. I have demonstrated throughout my career that I am a proactive leader. In 2007, it was pretty early in the opioid crisis. I looked around, and the city of Lowell did not have a substance abuse prevention coalition, yet we were one of the highest that was experiencing overdose deaths. So I worked with city leaders and our law enforcement and our healthcare providers and our public health experts and teachers and businesses. And we formed the Lowell Roundtable on substance abuse prevention, secured millions of dollars that we invested right back into our young people in increasing access to treatment. That's the kind of proactive leadership you can expect from me as your next lieutenant governor, anticipating, looking at the data, what's impacting people, and also putting people at the center. Because back in 2007, we were treating substance use disorder with much more stigma than we are today. We still have a long way to go to make sure that we are putting people front and center, but that's the kind of lieutenant governor that I will be, proactive, bringing people in, getting to the root causes of these big issues so that we can get our families on track, get our economy on track, and keep it that way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Gouveia. Mayor Driscoll, there are many important issues impacting residents of the South Shore. How will you meet these unique challenges?
Yeah, as we enter the next phase of the pandemic, I think communities are going to need a strong state partner. You know, we're not going back to the way things were before. As we transition to what comes next, we need to be nimble, we need to be agile, we need to be thinking about how COVID showed us the future and how do we take advantage of that. When I think about success that we've had at the local level, whether it's in my own community of Salem or several other, you could point to Worcester, you could point to some of the examples in Quincy and nearby communities here. It's when local leaders work with state officials towards an aligned vision. When you can gather stakeholders together at the local level, that's the private sector, public institutions, stakeholders, working in concert with state government to make sure you have the investments. Sometimes that's about dollars, sometimes that's about resources, sometimes that's about getting the state out of the way. To achieve a vision, that's when the magic really happens. As I'm traveling around the South Shore, there's certainly a diversity when it comes to communities, different neighborhoods, different characterizations, but so many of the issues we face are the same. Housing affordability is on the top of everyone's mind. The type of housing we have, the ability for young adults to grow up in the communities, to come back and live in the communities they grew up in, the ability of older adults to age in place and have the type of housing they need. We know the climate crisis isn't going away. Those of us who live in coastal communities see water rising every single year. The challenges that we need to take on. We've passed some wonderful legislation, but we're going to need action at the local level to implement that. When we think about transportation, here in regions served by the T, we know what's happening, and it's not good. But as you walk around the state into other places, we also recognize that transportation, public transit in particular, is not working in many parts of our region. It's not affordable, it's not convenient, it's not efficient. And in the MBTA right now, it doesn't feel very safe. We have work to do collectively. And as a mayor, I recognize when you bring people together toward a shared and aligned vision and lock arms and go get it, that's when you achieve success. That's what led to the sort of prominence we've seen in Salem, tied to the work that starts with a plan and then leads to action. As an executive, you don't have a choice. You've got to take the steps to be successful because the buck stops with you. And in January, whoever takes office, Governor Healy, and certainly I hope I'm the person who's next to her as Lieutenant Governor, we're going to own the housing crisis. We're going to own the transportation woes. We're going to own the child care gaps. There's not going to be a honeymoon. We're in for some choppy waters, and as someone who has managed a city during a recession in 2008, it is not easy to try and tackle challenges without resources. Now here's the good news. We've got historic resources in Massachusetts. We have a $5 billion, that's billion with a B, current supplement in the state budget. We haven't been able to unlock it. The legislature hasn't been able to pass an economic development bill that returns dollars to us or makes the investments in the communities that we need. We're hoping that's going to happen, that they're going to come back and get that done. I can tell you when you're mayor, you don't have that luxury. You've got to make sure that you have the resources you need, and if you don't, you find a way to move forward. Having managed the city during a recession, I know how important it's going to be as we move forward with choppy waters. Housing costs are already high. Add to that what it costs to go to Market Basket. Add to that what it costs to pay your utility bills. I'm a mom of 3 who one time had 3 kids under the age of 5. I know what that means to have that child care bill. It's like a second mortgage payment, let alone all the running around, getting people where they need to go. It's important that we have a lieutenant governor who understands the challenges that people face on the ground. Government's job is to respond to the needs of our communities. And think about it. Local government is the branch of government you rely on the most. Educating your kids, keeping your neighborhood safe, investing in those places you make memories, ensuring that you have opportunities for economic prosperity in your community. That's the work that we do at the local level that needs to be supported by the state, that needs to be understood, how we bridge those differences, how we take advantage of these dollars that we have that can lead towards a higher quality of life in the places people live. That's the work you do when you're mayor. I'm excited about this opportunity to serve as lieutenant governor because I have strong relationships with a number of local officials, have worked hard in a number of different settings, and know that that experience can be put to good use. That's why I'm running for lieutenant governor. I've got a great job right now, and I love the work I do in Salem, and I've appreciated working in partnership with state officials, so I know how to get that work done. I'd be pleased and thrilled to have your consideration and support in this race, because in January, experience matters. We don't have time for on-the-job training. We need people who have done the work. This is an executive job, and I've been an executive, and look forward to working in partnership with our next governor to improve the quality of life in the places where we all live.
Thank you, Mayor Driscoll. Senator Lesser, there are many important issues impacting residents of the South Shore. How will you meet these unique changes?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I do want to thank everybody for taking the time to gather today, and I want to thank everybody for their interest and their commitment to our democratic process. You know, the South Shore is facing the same challenges that many regions of our state are facing. In a way, our communities, our state, our Commonwealth has been a victim of its own success. We're an incredible state. We're at the vanguard of so many issues. We're at the vanguard of so many essential and important causes. We are also the home of so much innovation, iconic companies, incredible institutions, and things happening here. But people are being forced to leave because it's getting harder and harder to make it all work. The price of housing is going up, the price of childcare. I have 3 young children. My wife and I pay more for our childcare than we do for our mortgage, and that's not unusual. We also know that increasingly we have an economy that isn't creating enough mobility, enough opportunity for everyone. So here's just a couple of specific things, because I do think all of these issues are related, and a couple of things I plan to work on with Governor Healy. First, I'm very excited about the fact that we are going to be electing our first Democratic female governor in the history of Massachusetts. It's an incredible achievement. We can certainly applaud for that. And I am going to be committed to making sure that I'm doing my part to help execute and implement her agenda. Just a few things about my experience that I think are unique. I'm the only candidate, not only for lieutenant governor, but up and down the ballot, attorney general, auditor, secretary of state, who's from outside 495. I think that's an important perspective. If you look at recent teams, recent tickets, whether it's Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito from Shrewsbury, Governor Patrick, Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray from Worcester, Governor Weld, Lieutenant Governor Paul Cellucci from Hudson, Governor Cellucci, Lieutenant Governor Jane Swift from the Berkshires, from Williamstown. There's been an appreciation that you need an executive team that's speaking for our whole state. And just a few other items. Mayor Driscoll mentioned the federal money that's coming to Massachusetts and the federal money that's already come to Massachusetts. Over the next 5 to 6 years, nearly $9 billion in new infrastructure money is coming to our state from the Biden infrastructure plan alone. I'm the only candidate with federal experience. I'm the only candidate endorsed by a current federal elected official, the Dean of the New England delegation, Richard Neal, who has said that I'm the person that can work in a Healy administration to partner with the federal government to get those resources here. And here's just a few specific things. On transportation, we need a refund program for the MBTA. There was one that existed in 2011. It got taken away. We need a refund program. We need a rider's bill of rights at the MBTA, and we need new transparency and accountability requirements, including new powers to the Inspector General to make sure that there's transparency about safety issues and derailments. We need to invest in the system, improve the reliability and speed, and we do need to expand the system to reach more communities. It's going to help us tackle climate change. It's going to help us build more housing. It's going to help us expand economic opportunity to more places and more communities. And another thing I just want to add that I'm very excited to work on is to close the wait lists at our vocational schools. Braintree has a proud working manufacturing tradition, and unfortunately, so many of our vocational and technical schools across our state are struggling to meet the demand. They have waiting lists. At the same time, there's help wanted signs at companies all across our Commonwealth. We could create thousands of jobs tomorrow just by expanding the capacity at the training centers that already exist. I chair our manufacturing caucus. I chair our Gateway Cities caucus, where we've worked on these issues with local communities, with local school departments, with local employers to help get that done. It's an essential piece of our economy in Massachusetts and something I'm very excited to partner with Governor Healy on. So I appreciate everybody's time today and your participation in this forum. These are challenging times, to say the least. We are coming out of COVID, but there are variants on the horizon. We need to be prepared. We're in very challenging economic times, inflation at a 40-year high. We are going to need a team at the State House that is going to work to give voices to all the communities of our state and work on taking on those big challenges: transportation, housing, affordability, childcare, to expand opportunity for all our families. Thank you so much, and I humbly ask for your vote and your support on September 6th or before. Thank you.
I want to give one final thank you to all three Lieutenant Governor candidates. So if we could give them one final round of applause, all of them. And now it is my pleasure to welcome up Weymouth Chair Michael Grafton, who will be leading the conversation around State Auditor. Yeah, you guys can take your seats.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Grafton. I'm the chair of the Weymouth Democratic Town Committee. And by lottery, I get to choose, introduce the people who are running for state auditor. I was very happy about this. I used to be an accountant in my former life before I retired, and I dealt with auditors every year at the University of California. They were very important for us to make sure that our financial statements were accurate and that people could trust them so that they could make donations and make improvements in our infrastructure in the state of California. The other thing was that the auditors are also important for reviewing programs to make sure that the programs are efficacious, that they worked, and that they weren't dragging the state down. And so that's why I think auditing, this is the race that a lot of people don't understand, but it is the most fun because these are the people that are going to make sure that government works. So, everyone pays attention to the governor's office and the lieutenant governor and the attorney general, but the auditors are equally as important to make sure that we have a successful state government. So, without further ado, I introduce State Senator Dianna Desaglio from the North Shore, and Chris Dempsey. We are very lucky. We have, as Kathy pointed out, we have exceptionally high qualified candidates running for every office, and the auditor's office is no exception. So there are a couple of questions, and we keep them the same for both of you. And now I can't find them. Oh, here it is. So each person, so we start with Dianna. You were the the coin toss. I guess you were first. There are many, tell us about yourself and your background and what makes you qualified to be a state auditor.
Thank you so much, and always great to see you. And hello, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Dianna Desaglio. I am a state senator. I humbly serve up in the Merrimack Valley and parts of the North Shore currently, and I'm running to be your next state auditor to make sure that working families like ours get access to and accountability from our state leaders, regardless of our family background, our bank balance, or our zip code. A little bit about myself. Many of you already know my story, but I was born to a 17-year-old single mother. I grew up housing insecure. We moved around quite a bit during my childhood, depending on where my mom could find work as a young nurse's aide. We moved around mostly between the cities of Lawrence and Methuen. I ended up graduating from the public school system and going off to our local community college, which was an associate's degree I was able to afford thanks to our Democratic legislature's investments in families like mine. From there, I ended up earning a seat at Wellesley College, but the only reason I was able to attend Friends was because of a full financial need-based scholarship. And I think it's important to talk about that because it really was due to those financial investments made into my future success, regardless of my family background, my bank balance, or my zip code, that someone like me was actually able to see future success. And knowing that inspired me to give back to my community in whatever way I could. And since I couldn't do so financially, I went into community service. I served as a live-in mentor in a young teen girls' home. As a childhood survivor of domestic violence myself, I wanted to work specifically with young teen girls who had also survived domestic violence in the home. I worked at Girls Inc., helping to run their after-school programs as a volunteer, and I also served as the cultural arts coordinator at the United Teen Equality Center, expanding the diversity, equity, and inclusion programming, working with inner-city youth. Simultaneously through those years, I continued to do what I did to pay my way through college, which was waitress and clean houses. As many working families know, we might love what we do for a day job, but it doesn't always afford us with the opportunity to live with a standard of dignity in the communities that we're working hard to serve. It's why I've been such a staunch supporter of our labor organizations, and I'm so proud to have received the endorsements from organizations such as the AFL-CIO, the Massachusetts Teachers Association, the Massachusetts Nurses Association, I see some of you in the crowd here today, and many others across our Commonwealth who also support organized labor and workers' rights. But friends, it was during that time that I was working all these different jobs that I got offered a job working in our state house in the House of Representatives. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what a state rep did during that time in my life. Legislature was not part of my vocabulary. It's one of the reasons why I've been such a passionate advocate for civic education in our schools. Thank you. But friends, when I got that job, it was like drinking water from a fire hose. I learned really quickly about all the great things that our legislature can do, from investing in early intervention, public education, public higher education, fighting for women's reproductive rights, fighting for social justice across the board, fighting against climate change and for environmental justice, and beyond. I could go on and on. I learned about all these great things, but I also very quickly learned about the flip side of how our government can operate when there's no accountability. As a younger woman in my 20s, many years ago, I was sexually harassed while working in our own House of Representatives, and the way that they thought it was appropriate to deal with that harassment and make it stop was to fire me and then require that I sign a taxpayer-funded NDA that prevented me from talking about anything I'd seen, witnessed, or experienced behind the closed doors of Beacon Hill among some of the most powerful politicians in Massachusetts. But I didn't let them get rid of me or keep me quiet, and I didn't leave state government like they told me to do. I instead decided to run for state rep myself, becoming the youngest woman serving in the House of Representatives at that time. And friends, when I got elected, I took that responsibility incredibly seriously, and I knew it was incumbent upon me to fight like hell for other working families in our communities who have also been dismissed, ignored, or disenfranchised from a system in our state government that's still not working for all families in Massachusetts the way that it could and the way that it should. Friends, for as progressive or forward-thinking as we are here as residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, our state government continues to be ranked by almost every good government group as the least transparent and least accessible state government in the entire nation. We need to change that, but in order to change that, it's going to take electing bold leaders who have a vision, who are willing to stand up on Beacon Hill and speak truth to power. I have that proven track record for the last 10 years of standing up to the establishment on Beacon Hill, speaking that truth to power, and fighting for transparency, accountability, and equity will only continue and get stronger as your next state auditor. Thank you so much.
Okay, Chris Dempsey. Tell us about yourself, your background, and why you think that you are best qualified to be state auditor.
Thank you so much, Michael. Very much appreciate the question, and I thank everybody who was part of organizing this event. I think we owe a special thanks to Kathy Tuffy, so can we give Kathy a round of applause for really organizing beyond just Braintree and the entire South Shore, and thank you to Senator Desaglio for being here tonight as well. I'm Chris Dempsey, and I'm running to be your next state auditor. I'm running as the son of public school teachers. My parents met while teaching at the Martin Luther King School in Boston in 1970, and they were placed in adjoining classrooms. They met and they fell in love. And I saw over the course of their careers, and my sister's career, she's a public school teacher as well, that they dug into their own pockets to pay for classroom supplies for their students, as we know public school educators do to this day across the Commonwealth. And that's not right. My dad had a poster on his wall. He was a vice principal for many years. He had a basement office in his school. And some of you will remember this poster from the 1960s and 70s. It said, "It will be a beautiful day when public schools have every dollar that they need, and the Air Force has to hold a bake sale to buy a bomber." That's a poster about priorities, and it's a poster about making sure that we are spending our tax dollars in the right places. And that's also the job of the state auditor. I have a career in public service, serving as Assistant Secretary of Transportation for Governor Deval Patrick. While I was there, I co-founded the MassDOT program that created all the smartphone applications that tell you in real time when your bus or your train will arrive. And we made the MBTA, which today is known for catching on fire and stranding passengers, the very first transit agency on the entire East Coast to make those apps available to riders. So we've proven that it is possible to make the MBTA a leader and a world-class transit agency with the right leadership and the right vision. But I've also worked outside of state government to stand up to protect the public interest, which is an essential part of this role. In 2015, some of the most powerful corporate interests in Massachusetts got together behind closed doors, and they hatched a plan for the Boston 2024 Olympics. And as exciting as that idea was for many of us, when you read the fine print of that proposal, you saw that it required all of us as state taxpayers to cover 100% of Olympic cost overruns. If you liked the big dig, you would love the Boston 2024 Olympics. And think about that poster on my dad's wall, that the Air Force gets every dollar that it needs, and schools have to hold bake sales. Well, that was going to be the case with the Olympics. They were going to get every single dollar where our public education, our public health, our public transportation was going wanting. And that didn't sound right to me. So I created in a living room a group called No Boston Olympics. And we went up against those corporate interests, and we got outspent 1,500 to 1. Our average contribution size was $100. Their average contribution size, average, was $100,000. But we were successful, and my takeaway from that effort is that when you put good data and information in front of the people of Massachusetts, we make smart decisions. We're a pretty savvy group of voters. And again, that is the job of the state auditor, to dig into the executive branch, to figure out what's working and what's not working and how things need to change, and then to make the case with those facts and data about how we build a stronger Commonwealth together. I'm so honored in this race to be endorsed by Auditor Suzanne Bump, who is the first woman to ever hold the office. Of course, she held office right here in Braintree before being state auditor. The first woman to ever hold the office, the person who knows the job the best. And she is endorsing me in this race. I'm proud to be endorsed by 25 women legislators, including the President of the Senate, Karen Spilka. Proud to be endorsed by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, a young, dynamic leader who really provides a vision for what our Commonwealth can be beyond the borders of Boston. She's endorsed me in this race, and last week earned the endorsement of the Boston Globe. I live in the first floor of a triple-decker with my amazing wife, Anna. We got married 2 months ago, so this is still pretty new on my finger here. We got married on the South Shore in Hull, and we're looking forward to starting a family together in the first floor of a triple-decker, as I said, 2 blocks from where I grew up and where my public school teacher parents still live. Anna and I want to do that in a Massachusetts that is the best that it can be. And that means making Massachusetts state government the best that it can be by making it more transparent, more accountable, more efficient, and more fair. And that's why I'm running for state auditor and asking for your vote on September 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, the second question, and this one first to State Senator Dianna Desaglio. There are many issues affecting the residents of the South Shore, and why should they choose you over your opponent?
Well, I would like to start by saying I had a great conversation with your clerk here on my way in while I was waiting. And we had a great conversation here about elections and early voting and about unfunded mandates and about the importance of making sure that we in state government are meeting our obligations when we are voting on policies and that we recognize how they impact localities of all kind across our communities and have conversations with folks like our local clerks before making these decisions to make sure that we're able to meet our commitments. A while back, actually, Auditor Bump did a great report on early voting and how unfunded mandates were having a negative impact on communities, and that we were actually underfunding what we required our cities and towns to do regarding early voting. Now, we all support early voting, but I think it's important that we make sure that we're having these types of conversations before and not after these decisions have already been made so that we can meet our commitments. Those types of conversations need to be had. They need to be had early. They need to be had often, speaking of voting. But I will tell you, we had a great conversation, and I think that that is what one of the really important things is. When we talk about folks in the South Shore, many of the folks in this room I know personally already just from having campaigned for the last year and showing up and having these conversations. And showing up is a really important part of this job, making sure that we're not just going in and checking off the boxes, but that we're having those interactions with folks at the local level and that we're hearing from you. That's something that I've been doing as a legislator for the last 10 years. I've been serving thousands of people in the communities that I've represented, and I've heard from those who share my opinion and those who don't share my opinion. And they're all able to call, and we have conversations, even the tough ones, and those tough conversations produce great results where we're able to make meaningful change. I think showing up is a big part of it. So that's why I'm so grateful to be here tonight. But I also would like to say, working in coordination with local elected officials as somebody who's going to be a statewide office holder, I think is incredibly important. I am grateful to have the support of folks down here like Senator John Keenan, Rep. Taki Chan, Rep. Bruce Ayers, Michael Bellotti, and many others who I've had the opportunity to work on issues with to make sure that we have brought funds back to this region. Even though I haven't been technically representing as a senator for this area, I have had the opportunity to support great initiatives to help to bring funds back to this region by working in coordination with your local representatives, with your local senators, and working on that budget, that state budget for the last 10 years, going line by line in that state budget, and looking at the different state agencies and the different local projects and the issues and challenges that y'all have had has been really informative. It's informed my work and it's educated me. So as your next state auditor, I will be able to hit the ground running on day one, understanding that state budget process, being able to analyze and audit these state agencies that need to be audited. I'm proud to say that I was the first candidate in this race to call for a safety audit of the MBTA, which I think is incredibly needed. I'm the only candidate in this race who's committed to conducting an audit of the legislature. No one should be above the law, least of all our lawmakers. I say this as somebody who serves in the legislature myself. And I've also committed to conducting an investigation of those taxpayer-funded NDAs that I spoke about. That's something that's very important to me as somebody who experienced receiving one of those. I found out after breaking my silence that taxpayer-funded NDAs continue to cover up abuse of all kinds across all of our state agencies. They're able to be used. Now, we've been very grateful to have unanimously passed my bill to ban those agreements in the state Senate, but our tax dollars continue to be abused right now by being able to silence victims of harassment, discrimination, and abuse of all kinds by powerful politicians or staff in these state agencies. So since we haven't been able to pass that bill through the House and then to the governor's desk, and we've only passed it in the Senate, as your next state auditor, I'm going to be conducting a full investigation into the abuse of our tax dollars and the use of these agreements and much, much more. And I think that that's at my time. So thank you so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate it, South Shore. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Chris, there are many issues affecting the residents of the South Shore. Why should they choose to vote you over your opponent?
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. In preparation for this question, I was sort of thinking about some of the issues on the South Shore that I've heard about from all of you in our conversations over the last 14 months on the campaign trail. Those issues are very similar to ones that I'm hearing around the entire Commonwealth, but I wanted to focus on three in particular. The first is transportation, which is obviously in the news these days with the shutdown of the Orange Line. MBTA safety and performance is an issue that's very personal to me. My wife, Anna, commutes by MBTA every single day, and I will be the first statewide elected official to commute to Beacon Hill on the MBTA since Mike Dukakis left office in 1991. This is the first time in my lifetime of riding the T that I have legitimately questioned my safety getting on an MBTA vehicle, and that shouldn't be the case for anyone who's riding the system. We've put out a 4-point plan about how the auditor's office can help. It includes following the recommendations of the Federal Transit Administration, which is currently investigating the T's safety. The auditor's office today doesn't have the resources and the expertise to do a safety audit of the T. But as another point in my plan, I'm going to be requesting $2 million from the state legislature to be able to hire that expertise, engineers, people that have experience in transit operations, to create an MBTA accountability office in the auditor's office. The third part of our plan is to investigate and audit the DPU, the Department of Public Utilities, which actually has safety oversight of the MBTA. They don't do that job very well today, and we need to ask whether they're actually the right entity for that oversight or whether there's a better part of state government to do it. And the fourth part of my plan is the one I started with, which is that I will ride the system every day and use that experience as a rider to make sure that we're doing better than what we're doing today. I know that's important to those of you on the South Shore, whether you take the Greenbush line or the Red Line or a bus or even the ferry, you want that MBTA to serve you well, safely, effectively, and efficiently. Tied to the issue of transportation is, of course, the issue of housing. My wife Anna and I saved for years and years and years to be able to afford to buy the first floor of a triple-decker in my hometown. But for so many people, being able to live where they grew up is no longer a possibility because of housing prices going through the roof. As one of 6 statewide elected officials, I will have the responsibility to look for regional and statewide solutions to the crisis. No individual community can solve a housing crisis on its own. We have to be pushing at the state and regional level for those solutions, and I will do that as a statewide elected official. And then the third issue is on climate and environmental justice, which is a core part of my plan. I'm proposing to make the office a national leader on climate by making it the first in the country to incorporate carbon accounting into our audits of state agencies. And that plan has earned me the endorsement of the Environmental League of Massachusetts and the Sierra Club of Massachusetts. But when we address climate change, we can't leave any community behind. And so I'm going to create an Auditor's Commission on Environmental Justice so that those who are on the front lines of the climate crisis have a seat at the table on Beacon Hill. And in particular here, I want to call out the brave advocates and activists in Weymouth, including Alice Arena, Michael's predecessor as the Weymouth Democratic Town Committee Chair. Thank you. You all fought hard against the compressor station and are continuing that fight today. I want to be an ally to you on Beacon Hill as we keep up that fight, because that is an environmental injustice and it can be corrected with better leadership on Beacon Hill. That's the kind of leadership that I want to bring. So again, thank you. I'll just close again by asking for your support for my candidacy. I'm Chris Dempsey. I'd be honored to have you join Auditor Suzanne Bump and 25 women legislators and Mayor Wu and the Boston Globe and so many other local leaders who are supporting my candidacy. Thank you again for being here tonight, for engaging in democracy in this crucial moment, and it's been a real honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Diana, and I am honored to have introduced you, and good luck to both of you. And now it is my very happy to introduce Kathy Conway, who is the chair of the Holbrook Democratic Town Committee, our neighbor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Connolly, and I am the chair of the Holbrook Democratic Town Committee, and we're always looking for new members. So tonight, I'm here to talk about the Secretary of State's office. The Office of the Secretary of the Commonwealth it oversees numerous offices, too many to list tonight, but it ranges from elections and voting rights, corporations and securities, public records requests, and the census, to the Mass Historical Commission and the state archives. It goes on and on. This will be a big job. Secretary of State's office and the Secretary is a vital link for citizens to maintain an open, transparent government here in the Commonwealth. I know I've used it many, many times to track down owners of companies. So, we have two candidates. William Bill Galvin couldn't be with us tonight, but I am pleased to introduce and welcome back to Braintree Thayer Academy graduate, Tanisha Sullivan.
Thank you, Kathy.
So the first question that everybody has gotten is, please, Tanisha, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you feel you are uniquely qualified to be the next Secretary of State.
Thank you again, Kathy, and thank you, Kathy, for having me here this evening. It is good to be back. It's been 30 years, I'm confessing today, 30 years since I walked Thayer Academy's lawn, my high school graduation. But this brings back very fond memories. I grew up in Brockton. I am the daughter of a public school educator. My dad spent 40 years working in the Boston public schools. He started in '74 and retired in 2014. My mother is a small business owner. She started 3 businesses from our kitchen table in Brockton. The first 2 were focused on in-home childcare. Back then they called it in-home daycare. And her third business was to create a directory to provide greater supports to small business owners. I like to share that background with you because I think it helps people to better understand how I think about this office and why I believe it is so critically important in our democracy today. I'm now in my 20th year of legal practice. I'm a business lawyer. I've also served in our public school system, Boston Public Schools, as the Chief Equity Officer, and I'm a civil rights leader. Volunteer, I serve as the president for the NAACP in Boston. And through that work, I've been able to work right alongside our teachers' unions, our families, to help advance meaningful educational equity policy reform that is delivered on more funding for our public schools. I've worked across the ideological spectrum with Governor Baker's office to help deliver on over $190 million in financial supports for our small business community. And I've worked alongside community stakeholders to help usher in greater health care, equity, and access. And I've even taken one of the most challenging moments in our nation's history in 2020, following the murder of George Floyd, and sat around the table with law enforcement to deliver on meaningful progress to help bring about greater public safety in our communities. Today, I have the honor of working in a national public policy fellowship that is focused on looking for ways for us collectively to advance some of the most pressing issues, take on some of the most pressing issues facing our communities today, including the advancement of voting rights. I'm running for Secretary of State because I believe this office must be more proactive. It must be more engaged. We must transform it into an office that is really helping us to strengthen our democracy today at a time when so many people are disconnecting. So many people are concerned about the state of our democracy. Are we going to survive this moment of, quite frankly, what seems like an ideological civil war? We need a Secretary of State's office here in Massachusetts that is taking on these issues and understands how these issues are impacting communities every day. We need a Secretary of State's office that is going to address the issues that we have across our communities related to low voter participation. As Secretary of State, I will work to increase our voter participation rates. We need a Secretary of State who understands that we, the people, need access to information in order to, yes, hold our government accountable, but also, yes, take an active role in self-governing. I will bring about greater transparency to our government. And we also need a Secretary of State who understands that there's no way we can have a strong democracy when we have a weak economy, when we have families that are trying to make ends meet every day. And so as Secretary of State, I will, through the Corporations Division, ensure that folks aren't just going there to get a certificate of good standing, but that our small business community can go to the Secretary of State's office after paying their fees and actually receive service and be connected to the resources they need in our communities so they can thrive. Because our small business community is the backbone of our economy. And we need a Secretary of State who understands that.
Thank you, Tanisha. And the follow-up question, as with the country and the Commonwealth, there are many wide-ranging issues facing all of us, and in particular on the South Shore. Tell us why we, the people, should cast our vote for Tanisha Sullivan for Secretary of State.
Well, first and foremost, this is home for me. I grew up in Brockton. I was educated here in Braintree. Family in Holbrook. You know, I understand what it means to be on the outside of Boston, growing up in Brockton. I understand what it means to live in a community where people are just trying to make sure that their children don't have to experience the same challenges that they've experienced and that their grandchildren can look forward to a better future. I understand that. And I know that this office has within it the power and authority today to help families across the South Shore and across the Commonwealth actually realize that experience, that the next generation can do better than the last. But we're living right now, friends, at a time when our democracy is being tested. We can't take anything for granted, that everything is going to be okay because it's always been okay. This is a time for Massachusetts to be a beacon for the rest of the country, to really demonstrate what's possible when we have active engagement at the local level, to really demonstrate what's possible when we put information into the hands of the people and empower all of us to help be the change that we know we need. We can serve as an example right now at a time when our small businesses, many of them don't know if they are ever going to be the same coming through COVID. Here in Massachusetts, we can show that small businesses are not only the backbone of our economy, but they will help us be ushered into the future here in Massachusetts. The Secretary of State's office has a role to play in that. The Chief Elections Officer, the Chief Information Officer, the Chief Corporations Officer. We can do that. But we need leadership that sees it. We need leadership that knows how to usher it in. I'm going to leave you with one last example quickly. This office, I believe, also has an important role to play in helping us tackle our housing crisis. Because through this office, the Secretary of State chairs the Historical Commission, which has responsibility for allocating historic tax credits, which are used to help finance affordable housing projects. We need a Secretary of State who's not just going to check the box and just let applications move in and out. We need a Secretary of State who's going to be looking for opportunities to ensure that the South Shore has the affordable housing that it needs, that is going to be looking for opportunities to prioritize affordable housing projects that actually take into consideration sustainable development. This moment demands more. We have a good foundation, but we deserve so much more. And I know that if in this moment, we decide that Massachusetts will not only lead for ourselves, but we will lead for the nation, I know that together we will deliver more. So I'm Tanisha Sullivan. I'm running for Secretary of State here in Massachusetts. This is the office I believe can and should be our chief democracy office. I am asking respectfully for your vote on or before September 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanisha, and proactive is a beautiful word. Before I move on, I just want to thank Kathy Tuffy and Colin and Michael and John. As a new chair, it's been really interesting for me, and I'm thrilled to be taking part in this democratic process. So I'd like to introduce John Deely, the chair of the Hingham Democratic Town Committee.
Thank you, Kathleen, and good evening, one and all. I am the chairman of the Hingham Democratic Town Committee, and I and several of Hingham residents are pleased to participate in this forum this evening. This segment of the program is a discussion of the Attorney General's office. And so as a little bit of background, I'll just say that the Massachusetts Attorney General's office is an advocate and a resource for the people of Massachusetts in many ways, including protecting consumers, combating fraud and corruption, investigating and prosecuting crime, and protecting the environment, protecting workers, and protecting civil rights. So two of the three candidates are here this evening that are running for this office. One candidate, Andrea Campbell, was unable to make it. And based on a lottery, the first to speak tonight will be Shannon Liss Reardon, and the second will be Quentin Palfrey. So, please. So, as I mentioned, the first person to speak tonight will be Shannon Liss Reardon, and I'll ask the question we have asked everyone so far. Tell us about yourself and your background and why you are qualified for the job of Attorney General. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. I am very honored to be running to be your next Attorney General. My name is Shannon Liss Reardon. I have spent my career taking on the biggest challenges and delivering big results for regular people. I have spent the last 23 years, my entire legal career, representing regular people, working people. I have made national headlines and led teams of lawyers taking on some of the largest corporations in America. And time and again, we have beaten the odds and won against corporations like FedEx, Starbucks, Uber, Amazon, IBM, my alma mater, Harvard University, which I proudly sued at least 4 times. I have represented all types of working people, from waitresses to truck drivers to construction workers to firefighters to Uber drivers to strippers, and helped them recover more than $500 million that corporate America stole from them. This work has changed industries across Massachusetts and throughout the country, and I am so proud to have spent my career fighting for the people against the powerful and winning, which is exactly what I plan to do for you as your next Attorney General. I know that the people of Massachusetts can really use some wins right now. Income inequality is at an all-time high. Unions and the right to organize are under attack. Parents are having to choose between childcare and putting food on the table. And the U.S. Supreme Court has one by one been stripping away our rights on the federal level. I have taken on these issues through my career. I have spent 20 years figuring out legal ways around bad appellate decisions and bad Supreme Court decisions. It is critical that we have an Attorney General who is an experienced, seasoned attorney. I am the only candidate in this race who is an actual practicing attorney. I am the only one who has run a law firm. I am the only one who has won jury trials, who has argued and won appeals. I have won 7 landmark cases at the Massachusetts SJC. I have led teams of lawyers here in Massachusetts and around the country to victory in the courtroom, and I know how to use our legal process to make people's lives better. That is why I went to law school, and that is what I've devoted my career to. I started my career as a women's rights activist and organizer. I got my start right out of college working for the legendary Bella Abzug. And I loved Bella's big hats and her big ideas, and I learned so much from her, and I carried her vision and her activism with me through my career. I'm so proud in this race to have the support of the Massachusetts AFL-CIO, as well as more than 50 individual labor unions, including the Mass Nurses Association, the Mass Teachers Association, the Professional Firefighters of Massachusetts, and many more. Collectively, they represent more than 500,000 working people across Massachusetts. This is an important position which requires a seasoned, experienced lawyer. I am by far the most qualified attorney in this race. I so humbly ask you for your support on September 6th. I will fight for you as your next Attorney General, and together we will win. Thank you.
And our second candidate, Quentin Palfrey, the same question. Tell us about yourself and your background and why you are qualified for the job of Attorney General.
Good evening, South Shore Democrats. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Quentin Palfrey. I'm a proud Democrat running for Attorney General. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Democratic Party in this race. And as a former Assistant Attorney General, I've seen firsthand how much impact the people's lawyer can have on communities like the South Shore and communities all across Massachusetts. When Trump was in office, it was inspiring to see the AG fight back again and again and again against a corrupt and immoral administration. But now more than ever, with our fundamental rights under attack in the Supreme Court, with our democracy literally under attack, we need Massachusetts and the Attorney General to stand up and take on the really big challenges we face. Racial injustice, the climate crisis, attacks on our democracy, attacks on workers' rights and abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, housing costs and student loan debt, gun violence. We have so much work to do. The opioid crisis and the COVID pandemic have laid bare some of the really big challenges we face. Healthcare costs too much, it's too hard to access. We underinvest in mental health services and substance use services. I think we need to move towards Medicare for all. I was the first chief of the healthcare division in the Attorney General's office at the time that we were implementing Massachusetts health reform. We worked hard to make sure that everyone had access to high-quality, affordable health care. I sued predatory health insurance companies that were lying to Massachusetts patients, denying them cancer treatments, and we kicked them out of Massachusetts. And that's a good example of what the people's lawyer can do, like when the AG sued Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family, whose lies brought us the opioid crisis. The AG can also help stand up for an economy that works for everyone. Because right now, this economy works best for the very rich and for big corporations. I had the great honor to serve in the White House under President Barack Obama. I was senior advisor for jobs and competitiveness. I went back into the federal government on day one of the Biden administration. I led a team of 400 lawyers and helped to launch the Build Back Better agenda. And as AG, I'm going to fight against wage theft. I'm going to fight against Uber and Lyft and other companies trying to misclassify workers and take away their benefits. We got to fight for a fair share amendment so that the folks at the very top pay a little bit more so we can invest in transportation and in education, because the trains shouldn't be on fire and where you live and the color of your skin shouldn't determine what kind of an education your kids get. As the Chief Civil Rights Officer in Massachusetts, I'm going to take on educational injustice with the urgency that it deserves. We got to take on racial injustice in other ways, too. The murder of George Floyd and the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict are just the most recent reminders that there are two justice systems in America. We imprison too many people for too long for doing too little, and race has too much to do with who ends up in the criminal justice system. We need an AG who's going to lead the fight for criminal justice reform, for corrections oversight, for police accountability. I don't know how many of you saw that just heart-wrenching video the other day of police brutality. We need to get a handle on the corruption and mismanagement in the state police. And we're going to have to lead the fight against the climate crisis. I'm so honored to have the support of the Sierra Club and 350 Mass in this race. And what we do now or fail to do is going to determine what kind of life our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren live. And as AG, I'm going to stand up for a rapid transition to clean and renewable energy. I'm going to stand up against the Weymouth compressor station, the Peabody peaker plant, that Eversource facility out in Springfield. We're going to use the bully pulpit of the office to fight for our climate future. We're going to stand up against the Supreme Court that's undermining our rights, attacking not only abortion rights, but they're coming after LGBTQ rights and equal marriage and the right to contraception next. We got to stand up to defend Massachusetts laws against gun violence, because we've had some of the best outcomes in the country here, but the Supreme Court's gunning for that too. And we got to defend our democracy. I feel like we're watching history unfold in real time, watching these January 6th hearings. An armed mob stormed the Capitol to try to disrupt the peaceful transition of power at the instruction of a president of the United States. And if you ask yourself, where is the leadership going to come from to protect and defend our democracy? It's going to come from the grassroots. It's going to come from states like Massachusetts, and we're going to need to lead the way.
Thank you. So the second question is, there are many issues affecting the residents of the South Shore. Why should they choose to vote for you? And the first candidate is Shannon Liss-Reardon. Shannon.
Thank you. So as I said in my earlier remarks, I am the candidate in this race who has a proven track record of making a difference in people's lives. I know how to use the legal system to get results, to hold bad actors accountable. I will use all of the experience and skills and persistence and passion that I have put into my 23-year career protecting workers' rights to all of the areas that the Attorney General's office touches. I have heard during this campaign, as I've traveled around these past months, from folks all across the Commonwealth of what they want to see from the People's Law Firm. And I'll tell you this, the number one thing I think I've heard that the price of everything is going up. Housing is so out of reach for so many people. What better way to make sure that people have the money that they need in order to pay for their basic necessities for themselves and their families than to, first of all, make sure they're getting every penny that they're owed by their employers. I plan to set up a fund in the AG's office so that people who haven't been paid their proper wages can get paid right away, while the AG's office goes after those bad actor corporations who aren't following our laws. Similarly, in environmental enforcement, I plan to set up a green bank where we will take penalties that we recover from high impact litigation that gets polluters and others who have profited off of contributing to climate change, get them to pay for environmental justice projects and clean energy projects. I will enforce and ramp up the ability of the Civil Rights Division to take on systemic discrimination. I have spent my career as a civil rights lawyer fighting discrimination on a systemic basis, and there's more that the Attorney General's office can be doing in that regard, case by case. That is what I've done through my career, case by case. I've shaped the law to strengthen protections for people. I've stood up for immigrant janitors who got scammed into paying thousands of dollars for the privilege of scrubbing toilets in office buildings. Case by case, I made those practices illegal in Massachusetts. They don't do that anymore here. I went up to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court and got it ruled illegal to sell a job in Massachusetts. I took on the hospitality industry for years who were stealing tips from hardworking waitresses, bartenders, and other service employees. I haven't just taken on cases in my career, I've taken on industries. I've taken on principles, and that's what you want from an attorney general. Someone who will be the people's lawyer, someone who will take on the issues, someone who will take on bad actor corporations who steal our wages, who scam consumers, who are hurting our environment. I will protect. I will do everything in my power to protect the right to abortion services here in Massachusetts and make sure that those states that are trying to impose draconian limits on abortion rights don't get to enforce their laws here in Massachusetts. Here on the South Shore, folks are hurting like everywhere. There are particular issues that I will be sure to go after as Attorney General. I will fight the Weymouth compressor station, which should have never been situated here. I will fight to make sure that Holtec does not dump millions of gallons of radioactive waste into Cape Cod Bay, which is going to affect the South Shore. These are the issues that I have been hearing about as I've been traveling around, and I know that folks want the Attorney General's office to listen to them. I will make sure that the office is accessible to everyone. You have a complaint, your boss hasn't paid you your wages, a company has tried to scam you or your parents. You know about corporations that are taking advantage of people and the laws. We have outposts here. We have outposts in several places around Massachusetts, in Springfield and Worcester and New Bedford of the AG's office. I will keep those, and I'll look into expanding more outposts so that anywhere you reside in Massachusetts, you can walk into the AG's office, bring your complaint. We will look into it. We will investigate. We will take legal action where we can. That's what I've been doing as a practicing lawyer for the last 20 years, running a law firm. I've taken thousands of complaints every month from workers, people seeking justice. We parse out which cases we can take on, we investigate, we bring legal action, we put people in touch with resources that can help them. That's what I would do as your Attorney General. That is what I have been doing every day for the last 23 years, and I would be so proud and honored to be able to expand my client base from the thousands of Massachusetts residents who I have helped through my private law practice as a private attorney general, and expand that base to the millions of Massachusetts residents who need to have their voices heard. So I ask for your support September 6th. Thank you so much.
And same question to Quentin Palfrey. There are many issues affecting the residents of the South Shore. Why should they choose you? Why should they choose to vote for you?
Thank you so much. The South Shore has a very special place in my heart. My first job after college actually was working on a congressional campaign on the South Shore for Phil Johnston. Got to know a number of these communities really well. I grew up in Worcester County. My parents were pediatricians, and I think we have a shared sense in central Massachusetts and in the South Shore that sometimes Beacon Hill forgets that the rest of the state is here. And as the Attorney General, I want to be really deeply in touch with communities all across the Commonwealth. I agree with Shannon entirely about Holtec and fighting back against that radioactive water. We got to be engaged in each of these local issues. But let me say I have great respect for my two opponents, but there are very big differences in this race. And let me mention a few things that I think make me stand apart. The first is that the Attorney General is a hard job to do as your first job in government. And I think that we need an Attorney General who's been in the office, who's been an Assistant Attorney General, led a division, understands how to use the office effectively to stand up for communities. I also led a team of about 400 lawyers in the Biden administration, an agency of 50,000 people and a $12 billion budget. And I mention that because the Attorney General's office is a big government agency, and it's really important that we have an Attorney General who's ready on day one, particularly in this moment when the Supreme Court is undermining our rights. This is not a time for on-the-job training. We're also in a moment where our democracy is literally under attack. And one of the biggest challenges that we face is corporate money in our elections. Since Citizens United, we've seen a flood of corporate money undermining our government. If you ask yourself, why don't we have more urgent action on the gun violence epidemic? Well, it's the NRA. If you ask, why don't we have more urgent action on the climate crisis? It's those polluters and their power over Congress. And that's why Shannon and I have been so strong on this question of trying to keep corporate money out of our elections. One of our opponents has not only not signed the People's Pledge, but has received corporate super PAC support both in her mayoral race and in this election, from supporters of charter schools, from big banks, from millionaires and billionaires. And if you want the people's lawyer to stand up against those big corporations, to take on the really big challenges, you can't also have corporate super PACs supporting those candidates. I'm the only candidate. I'm the only candidate in this race who is neither self-funding my campaign nor taking corporate super PAC money. I'm in the clean election system, and I think it's really important to have an Attorney General who is truly independent. We are used to Democratic primaries where people basically agree on the issues. That is not this race. There are very big differences on policy on single-payer health care, safe injection sites, expanding charter schools, fair free transit, police accountability, rent control, and clean elections in this race. And I promise you that if I have the great honor to be your Attorney General, I'll take on those corporate special interests. I will fight for health care as a human right. I will fight for an economy that works for everyone, for urgent action on the climate crisis, urgent action on abortion rights and gun violence and housing costs, because that's what the people's lawyer does. And that's the kind of Attorney General that I'm going to be. So I'm Quentin Palfrey. I'd be honored to earn your support. We're running a truly grassroots campaign. Please join us at quentinpalfrey.com. I'd be so grateful if you'd consider voting for me on September 6th.
So on behalf of the forum, thank you both, Shannon and Quentin, for being with us this evening and presenting your case. Much appreciated. And now I'm going to turn the mic back to Kathy Tuffy to, we have one more segment to the program this evening.
Thank you. I would really like to thank all of the candidates who were able to take the time during this busy end of the campaign season to be with us. We do have one candidate who is running unopposed. That's Treasurer Deb Goldberg, and she has sent in a short video to just talk about the Treasurer's office, which I'm hopefully going to run now. So this is Treasurer Deb Goldberg in this video.
Hey there, everybody. It's Deb Goldberg, your state treasurer. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to send in this video, since sadly I couldn't be there with you tonight, and share with you a little bit of what's been going on and talk about what we can look forward to in the future. I do want to say, being your treasurer has been an honor of a lifetime, and certainly you Dems from Quincy, Weymouth, and Braintree have been tremendous supporters of mine and always had my back. And so you all remember that when I first began and was talking about economic stability and security and opportunity, you knew those were my personal mission. And that's what's driven everything we have done. My team and I have accomplished so much, not only in the traditional areas like cash and debt management, unclaimed property, and the like, but very, very importantly in investing in people. High school students, giving them the financial skills they need to understand their decisions and keeping them out of debt. Teaching seniors how to avoid frauds and scams. Taking care of our service members and veterans, getting them their coming home bonuses, providing financial workshops for them, and empowering women and girls to break through barriers and get paid what they're worth. This is what has driven me and our team every single day. And we've led on wage equality and in creating the most diverse workforce in state government. In fact, we established the Treasury's first ever Women in Finance Fellowship Program, instituted 12 weeks paid leave, parental leave, for women and men, for biological adopted and foster children. And after the Dobbs decision, we instituted a reproductive health leave to offset the terrible things that had happened in Washington. You and I all know also that the pandemic hurt everyone, but it really hurt women and people of color, small business people. So whether it's our women's empowerment programs, salary negotiation workshops, equal pay conferences, or I created 2 sites, websites, that are available to everybody 24/7, equalpayma.com or myfinanciallifema.org. We are tackling the challenges head on, helping small businesses stay afloat with a COVID relief grant program. And we've just finished a small business toolkit to help businesses starting out. Very exciting. Even with the pandemic, we got the chance to launch the savings plan that I've been talking about and done pilot programs for. Baby Steps Savings Plan provides kids and their families with a seeded savings account for college or vocational and technical training, and wraps financial literacy programs around them and their families. We've accomplished so much, but we are not even close to done. I recently filed a bill with the legislature to provide financial education to every single kid before high school graduation, one of the most important tools to prevent debt. And now we have a task force looking at something new, baby bonds. It levels the playing field and creates asset building for kids from the time they're born till 18 years old. It can be used for education, buying a home, or starting a business. And we've taken the She Session head on, not only helping women back into the workforce, but helping get quality, affordable childcare. Naturally, like all of you, we see climate as one of the greatest risks of our time, and working collaboratively with a lot of people across the country, we're going after the fossil fuel companies and pushing corporations toward a zero carbon world. We've done some more, and we're not stopping now. But as activists, I wanted to step in and just share some of the exciting things going on, and be sure to thank you for always having my back the way I will always have yours. Thank you, and I can't wait to see you all in person soon. Take good care. Treasurer. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to send in this video, since sadly I couldn't be there.
Where did it disappear to?
And share with you a little bit of what's been going on, and talk about what we can look forward to in the future. I do want to say, being your treasurer has been a
Go, go.
Don't go away. Can you get that? Can you get that? Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending tonight. I'm just going to share with you a few important dates. Saturday, August 27th, is the last day to register to vote. It is also the start of the in-person early voting. You can see that our town clerk has set up, has started to set up for early voting. Monday, the 29th is the last day to apply for a mail-in ballot. And on Tuesday, September 6th, 2 weeks from today, we will find out which one of these wonderful candidates have won their election, the primary election. I think you will all agree with what I said at the beginning of this forum, that we are, as Democrats, are very excited to have such a qualified, talented slate of candidates on the ballot. So I hope the forum has helped you to decide who to vote for, and I thank you very, very much for coming. And thank you to my fellow chairs, Hingham, John Dealey, Holbrook, Kathy Conley, Mike Grafton from Weymouth, and Colin McMahon, Vice Chair from Quincy. Thank you very much. Good night.